All right. All right, and I'll hit mute. There we go. Okay, Justin Armstrong's here again today. So the sign-in sheet's going around and there's a little quiz. So we're going to talk a little bit about this quiz. So go ahead and start on it. This is not graded. You just keep it, go through and answer the questions the best that you can think of. And remember, this is just all soft skill stuff. And today we're going to talk, I'll give you some fun stories about some of this stuff. And I'm sure Justin has just as many fun stories as I do. So on that note, it's all yours.
So should I let them do the quiz first, or how do we want to do this?
I don't know. So you can read through it. Just,
Do you guys want me to read through the quiz, or do you guys
Yeah.
want to just do it real quick and then we can go over it? Okay, go ahead. You guys go ahead and do that real quick, and I will give you the time
Yeah.
to do it, and
we'll walk through and
yeah, we'll walk through it.
My son, the company didn't pay the ransomware. They're trying to just figure it out.
okay. Yeah, they can get some help from the FBI.
They're gonna start from scratch, I guess.
Yeah, you got to restore from golden drives.
Yes, they knew what to do, so I. just
Yeah,
have to-
it's called disaster
Oh,
recovery.
yes, we have a few of those.
I feel
Yeah.
like these- Their jobs maybe by being able to do that and not.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
I have to tell you to follow up to that.
yeah. I'm glad they didn't pay the ransomware. Some companies just,
You don't have a choice,
yeah,
but I'm.
they
so
don't have
glad
the
they didn't.
tools.
They're-
Another reason to move to the cloud, you know.
Back up.
Yeah, and the problem with,
Any thoughts and backups?
yeah, and the problem with that moving to the cloud is cost. It's
Yeah.
not that much of a cost saving.
Yeah, but think about the alternative. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Not have, this happens. And now you've got to either pay this, $15 million ransom, whatever it is they're
Right.
asking for, and that then
And
the
then
cost is,
once you pay it,
they know.
they're gonna keep pulling on it.
Yep.
You know,
They may put it in there that they have a backdoor automatically without you even knowing, because they have, unlimited access to your unmitigated access.
Oh, another fun thing I do from my class, I give them this. I said, "Got it, thank you." And I have students right on the front. When one or two get it, fold it in half.
Well, that's what I would do. That's because I'm weird though. I'm like,
You know, most, it's like, that's one of the questions I like to start with is how many you just grew up with thinking.
mhm. It's not just about coming out and talking at people, it's about building relationships and follow through and follow up.
Mhm.
Because if you don't have follow through and follow up, you're just a face of the crowd.
Mhm. And it would, don't you hate it when you send something to somebody and you never hear,
And I didn't respond to your email.
oh, that's fine. I understand you.
And you know darn well don't care. I hope so, at least.
Yeah. We're on the same line. So. Now you have to score a perfect on this quiz.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Let's
She
see.
told me your joke. I completely forgot what it was, but she told me and it said it wasn't a laugh. She's like, I don't remember what this is.
Yeah. Here we go. This is the answer key.
Okay.
Quote, answer key. So we can go over those. These are fun. We can also ramble off of those.
Yeah,
too.
that's right. I'm leaving the first. one.
Yeah.
Here, let's end recording for a second. Is that okay?
What do you want to do?
End recording just for a second.
End-
End
oh,
recording. 'Cause
Oh,
We're talking up here.
oh, okay. Yeah, we can just recording. Okay. What we're doing is we're taking this quiz from this book that I usually teach in my final projects class, and it is online, and I will post the link inside of Canvas. And this is just practical advice about performing inside a business community. Now, let me give you one story on where this comes in handy. Table manners, business lunches. When you go out with your boss and you have a business lunch, you want to use your table manners that you learned. You know, you don't want to eat like an animal, and you want to use, you don't have to use fine dining etiquette, but you do have to, you know, you're not on the beach, so to speak, you know, so you want some. And here's a perfect example. I was working for this company called Tab Products, and we got a new director that came in, and we took him out to Mexican, and we had a Mexican lunch. He had never had Mexican before. So this was his very first time eating Mexican food. He was from the Midwest, you know, meat, potatoes, that kind of diet. So when they brought out the chips and the salsa, they put the salsa in front of him. So he breaks out his napkin. He thinks it's soup and starts eating it like soup. And everybody at the table was just going to say, is he really going to do this? And sure enough, it was hilarious. It was something we never let him forget. One more is that I heard a story, true or not, could be folklore, that the manager took out a potential employee, but chose not to hire them because they salted and peppered their food before they tasted it. And the manager said, you know, that's the lack of discrimination. Okay, so on this, I'll let you go over the quiz and you're good to go.
Well, hi guys, I missed you guys. So honestly, the reason I wanted to come back is it had to do with more about follow up and follow through. You know, this is my first time doing this, like the last time was. And, you know, I talked about value and that each of you guys have your own value that you all individually need to find. And, you know, one of the big thing, and it kind of ties into manners, is follow up and follow through. I didn't want to just come in and say hi and leave you guys with a whole bunch of information. I wanted to follow up and say, hey, you guys are worth my time. And, you know, making sure that, you know, something that can be taught is that you guys follow up with the people that you interact with on a daily basis, whether it's work or school or personal life. You know, that's a big thing. So all that being said, I guess we'll go over the quiz now. Yeah. So so number one, you're in the office on the telephone and another call comes in. You should ask the person if you can put him or her on hold, let the voicemail take it, or tell the person you are talking to that you must put him or her on hold for a moment. So who's going to raise their hand and answer for me? Ask the person if you can put them on hold. Okay, that is a very good answer. And so in these cases, this has to do with prioritization. And by the way, if you get it wrong, it's not that big of a deal. We're here to learn. So it's not, you know, so in these cases, generally speaking, you want to let the voicemail take it. And the reason being for that is that right now in front of me, while I'm talking to you, you are the most important person at that moment. You know, obviously, if there's a fire or something like that, you're going to want to run to that. But, you know, if you're on the call and you get a call and you say, oh, hold on a second, and then you let them know, hey, I'll call you back. You go back to that call. What happens when the next call happens? And you're still on the phone with that same person. They feel devalued. They feel like they're not worth your time. And then you end up putting them on hold 3-4 times if it ends up being a half-an-hour conversation. And, you know, prioritization is saying you have a way to check back up on that person. Thankfully we have the technology now for that. You know, if it's important, they can message you or text you and you can glance over while you're on the phone. But, you know, generally speaking, yeah, voicemail take it is going to be the best bet for this instance. So you call a colleague and you put your phone on speakerphone. Another coworker is in the room. You should, instead of me reading them all off, let's, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, just give them a right now.
Okay. So who wants to raise their hand? I'm gonna pick you this time.
Need to tell the person on the phone that you wish to use a speakerphone, mention the other person in the room and ask the person on the phone if this is okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Now tell me why.
because you can't have people on the phone without somebody else knowing. There's privacy issues to that.
Mm-hmm.
So And it's just weird, rude, and, yeah. Is there something else I'm missing?
No, you did, that's
No?
perfect.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so my wife calls me and I'm in the car and I picked up the kids from school. And of course, my car has Bluetooth. I answer it. First thing I'm gonna say,
Mhm.
hey, babe, you're on speakerphone.
Yeah.
Don't say anything embarrassing.
Yeah. That's right.
Because it does happen, you
Yeah.
know, and it's funny because she forgets to tell me sometimes, hey, are the kids in the car? And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut right now. Can't talk about the kids. So good job, good job. So number 3, you have exchanged a couple of angry emails with a coworker who, in your opinion, is being unreasonable. It is getting out of hand. You should, and I've done this. So I'm gonna mix it up a bit. I do appreciate that you're raising your hand every time.
I feel like we should change the medium so that you get more of a, like, sort of a face-to-face conversation. Is that way it feels a bit more sincere and you can talk back a bit more, than just keep the anger flowing around.
100%. That's exactly it. And the other thing about text, if you guys have taken any argumentation classes, especially with Alan, I don't remember his last name right now. I don't know if he's still teaching, but the thing about communication is it's on the receiver to take it how they want. If I'm angry and Jasmine emails me, I'm going to read it in an angry tone. I'm going to feel attacked, and we don't want that. And when you're going back and forth with somebody, especially in email and text, if your anger is already risen up inside of you, it's just going to keep escalating. And by using tonality over a phone call or in face to face, and they can see your expression, you're going to completely change an attitude. You know, even saying, hey, I just wanted to follow up on this. I know it seems like there might be a misunderstanding. Never attack that person as well in person, because that's just going to make things even worse. So yeah,
Can I add to that?
absolutely.
So personally, me with texting, to order to not, because I type text a lot for business. And I will use a lot of emojis in order to make people understand that it's being whatever. You can't do that in business, or you're gonna look like a big dork ball. So yeah, I mean, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, judicious use of emojis, you have to kind of consider the audience. Like when I get emojis from students, I'm going, what does that mean? I actually have to go look it up. So I don't have a frame of reference for emojis and what they mean. So, it's better just to kind of write it out amongst peers and things. When things are informal, that's fine. There's a quiz on the back table and you grab it. It's a 10,000 point quiz that you have to do before the class. Just kidding. But yeah.
Well, and the joke is, a lot of people are like, there's the hands that are like this with the little lines up. Some people thought that was praise hands. Some people think it's prayer hands. Some people think it's high five. So once again, it's on the receiver.
No, it is, this is a high five, apparently. not
Yeah,
praying.
I'm
Yeah.
still, I'm like, I just don't use it.
What are we talking about here?
So
What
the-
does this mean?
the message.
I don't know. Yeah,
I get it.
Contact, anyway.
Context, yes. And generational, you got to realize, like with me, even though I'm like in that mid area generation right now, when I'm at work, I'm professional. When I'm outside of work, I'm fine with being goofy and saying stupid stuff, and it's totally cool. But I have to also read the room, and that's a big thing. So knowing who you're talking to. So you're presenting to a potential client. Suddenly this person's body language turns very negative. You should.
But you know what negative body language is? You're making your fists. That's negative. You start looking away.
Scowling.
Yeah. Face tightens up.
Yep. So this is a there's 2 answers to this one. So either one or both are correct.
I was gonna say,
Sorry.
ask questions to determine what you said that was upsetting, attempt to rectify the situation.
Good job. And if you were to pick one more, which one would it be?
I was gonna say, stop in the middle of the presentation and ask what is wrong.
So the first one, your first answer was 100% correct. I understand why you would pick B. Hard part about B is if you're presenting and it's multiple people, you don't want to call somebody out. So, but in that case, A, try to engage the person in some interaction. Like, Jasmine's glaring at me right now, and be like, I'll start to talk to her, and she's not actually glaring at me. I work with her. We found this out last time. She's- Yeah.
Poor Jeff.
We told her that's why she needs to get 100% because she works with me,
Yeah.
right? And she's like, she didn't answer any of the questions. She's just answering them as she goes along. But you know, that's a big thing, you know, like with me, it sounds like I'm propping myself up here. I'm not trying to, but like I want to make eye contact and I don't want to just stand up here and ask questions and give the answers. I want you guys to engage. And by doing that, I think it really builds up, you know, a rapport with people and they understand where you're coming from instead of just speaking at people, which is a big thing. All right. So number 5, you're delivering an important presentation that you don't want interrupted with questions. You should. Go ahead. B, so read it out for me.
Tell the audience before and prefer to answer all questions in the presentation.
Good job. That's exactly what you want to do. First off, refusing to answer a question when somebody asks makes that person go back to number 4, where they're going to be like, I feel ignored, I feel unimportant, you know. And then answering questions as they ask, even though you prefer not to, it really, some presentations, they'll have the answers in the presentation. So if you are able to continue that presentation, and maybe they won't need that question at the end. And if somebody, even if you do bring it up, you know, at the beginning of the presentation, hey, just to give you a heads up, I'm waiting till the end for all questions, and then they still raise their hand, just say, oh yeah, I'm happy to answer your questions, just wait till the end. You know, that way you're giving them that acknowledgement that they have a question, but you know, you're also guiding the room and taking control of the room of saying, hey, we're going to wait till the end because too many distractions can really make a presentation go long. Even for somebody who talks quickly. All right. When communicating across language barriers, putting things in writing.
Who's hard?
I'll pick him. I'll get you next time.
I was gonna say that it could be helpful, that it's usually easier to read English than to hear it, but I kind of just also thought that it could be either way. It depends on the person you're actually talking to.
Depends is a big word right here too, but you are correct. It can be helpful. It's usually easier to read English than to hear it. One of my staff members actually is an ESL, which for those of you who don't know, it's English as a second language. And we do, you know, I work with them to slow down and, you know, really read those emails, because sometimes verbal things can get lost in translation. I may use a word that he may not be familiar with in email. Not only does it make them not feel like less of a person because they have to ask what something is, they can go Google a word. And what's great is they can follow up and email me back, just say, you know, I understand the rest of this, but I'm a little confused on this one. And it really helps to break down the communication barriers that might happen with people who have ESL. I mean, it's amazing that they can even learn a second language. I could probably take a note or an In-N-Out burger in Spanish, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'll add a story to that. When I was at Foster Farms, the guy in charge of trucking, you know, obviously he's got multiple languages to deal with. And he was saying, some of these guys, just rocks, you know, he just went off, and I was talking to him about it. And I said, they're probably not that dense, but you need to use smaller, simpler words, because English is not what they think in. So if you take, who wrote, Jesus, name, the author that wrote The Old Man and the Sea. What's his name? Famous guy. Dang, can't remember his name.
The Old Man and the
It's not Herman Melville that.
No,
Ernest Hemingway.
Hemingway.
There we go.
You know, he says, I know the $30 words, but I choose to use the smaller ones because it conveys the idea more clear. And there's something to be said for a simplified language. When you just, in business writing, you're free to use whatever you want. But if you come off and you use a lot of big words, you sound kind of pompous. You know, so you want to make they generally say, write your business communique about the 5th or 6th, maybe the 8th grade level. And your Windows has got a little thing on there that you click. How intelligent do I sound? 3rd grader, you know, postgraduate, you know, depending on the size of your words, sentence structure. And
You know, you're gonna show that off now.
all that stuff shows up, it's like, so it's up, that you're. If you want to model the right kind of business communicate, do what your boss does. Okay, that's short story to go right with that.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, it's not dumbing down because they're dumb. It's just making it easier for people to understand. Simpler language doesn't mean they're a simple person. It just
Right.
means, hey, I want to communicate effectively. And because if you can't communicate effectively, you're gonna suck at your job. And that's a hard thing, to learn. All right, so we were on number 6, right? Okay. Learning to speak a few words of the language of clients, customers, or coworkers whose first language is different from yours is. Go ahead.
This was hard for me because I think it's generally a good idea as the effort communicates respect for the other culture. However, if you make a mistake in the vocabulary, so it's either A or C.
That's
No.
okay. That's good. No, A is the correct answer,
It is A
but
or A.
I completely understand that fear. And that's where a little bit more communication is very helpful because inflection in some
Yes,
languages.
you have another funny story.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
this is, my wife's cousin was telling me that when he went to trade school, he was surrounded by folks that knew Spanish and he wanted to learn Spanish. So the first thing they taught him was all the swear words.
Of course.
And he had no idea that they were all the swear words. So they were having fun with him, but they trusted him enough that, to have that kind of fun with somebody. Sometimes it's mean spirited and sometimes it's in good conscience. And once he figured it out, he got on and then he picked up on Spanish as time went on. He says, it's funny thing is I remember all the swear words.
And I think to your concern on C is it goes back to knowing your audience. Is it somebody who is going to, saying thank you in somebody's language is you generally gonna be okay,
Yeah.
or.
You can also have them correct you.
Yes,
Hey, I'm just
yeah.
learning. Could you help me?
Because people like to teach.
Yeah. oh,
Yes.
yeah. We're all full of fire.
It's also important to know just like handshakes and.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
No thumbs up in some languages
This is.
or in some cultures. I don't know if it's
No,
100%.
thumbs up are okay.
Yeah.
Those signals mean other things in other cultures. And also, if you're working with the Southeast Asians, do not put your hand on top of a child's head. That is a big no. It's like shaming the kid. So there's a lot of soft culture that you're never taught. But if you treat people with respect, that comes through. Like I worked with Japanese folks a lot in my previous life. And when they would introduce themselves, they would offer their business card with a bow. And you didn't just take it from your pocket. You got the business card and you put it in your hand. You go, wow, ooh, that's so cool. They expected that. So, but learning these cross-cultural nuances are sometimes difficult. I happened to work with a Japanese fellow and he was very proficient in English. He was also pretty far up the food chain in his company. So I asked him some of the things about the culture. And he says, well, in Japan, we're resource constrained. That's why our chopsticks are shorter than in China. That's why the game of shogi, which is like chess, you don't take the piece off the board. It just becomes your piece. You turn it around. And there was many things like that that helped you get inside the mind and go, oh, this is really interesting. So learning about the culture, but I don't know, to be frank with you, the only real way to learn that is to talk to somebody who's in country. Like I got to work with somebody who was born and raised in Mexico, came to the United States, became a citizen. And I said, well, what's hard about learning, adapting to the business arena? Was it learning English? He said, no, that wasn't hard. It was the references people used, idioms. When you refer to
Idiots.
things like kid stories, nursery rhymes.
Pop culture.
They had different nursery rhymes. So they meant something different. So it's like, when you start saying, ah, it's a tough nut to crack. What does that mean? What are euphemisms? Well, that's, when you don't want to use euphemisms. Period,
If you-
unless you're in a comfortable arena.
If you guys have watched Guardians of the Galaxy and just think of Drax.
Yeah,
Idioms go through him, euphemisms and sarcasm. He's like,
yeah.
why would this mean?
A lot of-
Oh, yeah, a lot of people don't understand. I
I'm
mean,
very sarcastic and I have to be so careful. I have to.
yeah, some people just don't get it. Yeah.
I can't do dry sarcasm. When somebody is really dry sarcastic with me, sometimes it just, are you serious?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get it. That isn't ammo for you, Jasmine, okay? All right. So if you meet someone whose body language is more outgoing and expressive than yours, you should not attempt to match it. That's a hard one. That's a hard one.
These are actually, these are tough.
Yeah.
And now remember, this is coming from this book. It's an opinion, but it's also more generational. Because it may be more acceptable in a younger, you got a younger boss and you're young, it may be more acceptable to use a cell phone in the middle of a conversation in the hallway. But if it's an old gray guy, nah.
And so for me, I'm very enthusiastic. If I run into somebody who's like myself, I actually end up backing off a little bit, because two of those types of people in a group can really overwhelm other people's senses. And it's easier. You also have to admit who you are, because, you don't need to be somebody different simply because they are like that. You need to take your own values and your own personality and build up your strengths in that area. You don't have to match everybody else. My wife, complete introvert. She'll have a good time with people. But I say, hey, we're making plans Saturday to go hang out with our neighbors. She dreads those plans up to the minute. And she's like, do I have to go? Do I have to go? And I'm like, well, you don't really have to. But the fact is that, you'll probably have a good time. And she does generally have a good time. But I don't expect her to match my enthusiasm level for people and for situations. So, that's an emotional intelligence issue too, is being
Yeah,
able to
that's-
adjust.
Yeah.
Adjusting for the room. It's like, it's empathy. If somebody's sad, you're not going to keep that outgoing. You're going to try to be more comforting to them. And I think that's a big thing right there.
Does everybody know the difference between sympathy and empathy? If you do not, write it down on the quiz and look it out.
Mhm.
It's extremely important in today's world. What is empathy versus what is sympathy? And there's some really good YouTube videos out there that explain it.
I saw that as a question on Reddit recently. It explained like I'm 5 was the difference between sympathy and empathy, because the person didn't understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's, unless it's something you have to be cognitive
Yeah.
about. You have to think about it, because it's not natural for us to be empathetic. Anyway,
Okay. So you did. Thank you for answering. I did that. It can work one-on-one. It's the hard part about this question is, like, you have a friend that is outgoing, right? Exactly.
They're more like just kind of quiet now. I kind of think I have to like try to be more to just keep the energy going.
Mhm.
I like to like match myself to other people. Like, oh, if they're being happy, I should like make an effort too,
Well, and that's good. I think this has to do with more business setting. You don't have to attempt to match it, I guess would be the key word. It's not required to attempt to match it, but using that emotional intelligence, like you said, if you're in an environment where it starts to calm down and you're like, okay, well, let's just keep going, it's like a social glue. So, there's nothing wrong completely with trying to match, to attempt it, to match that level, but it's not required. And then, of course, like I said before, it depends on the environment. It's a hard one, but that's it could go really either way. And like you said, it's opinion on the book writer too.
Mhm.
So the hard part is that there's definitely some fluid answers here.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
and so I'm coming from sociology and they tell in a personal relationship, when you're wanting to connect with somebody, you're supposed to mirror them. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
For sociology. So again, this is one of those things that's different for business. So it's interesting to me because I would have been thinking of my sociology going, well, I need to mirror this guy and.
you got it. You also,
no.
I think you also have to be true to who you are. Yeah, and that's a big thing.
true.
It's not a black and white situation. If you're building a relationship with if you want a partner, a spouse, whatever, you don't want to be fake,
Yeah.
because then they don't get to know the real you. And then, a year later, if you decide to get married or don't get married, whatever, they see who you start to change who you are and be real around them. And they're like, well, that's not the person I got with.
I can't remember why. I mean, the point of it was to make the other person comfortable or
Mhm.
something. I don't know. It was like
Mhm.
a couple years ago that I did that, but that's what I was thinking of when I did this. But that's like,
Mhm.
you have to, it's different for business. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
that you
And it's
brought
like I
that
said, fluid is the
Yeah,
key
think of
word here.
This is an office
gotcha.
arena. Think of it as in the office with coworkers that may be your superior or not.
Go ahead.
What's the best way to describe the difference between sympathy and empathy? Sympathy, you feel sorry for someone if something bad happened, but empathy, you understand what someone is going through. Like you had a similar experience to them,
Mhm.
therefore they're
I think when you watch a movie and say it's Jim Carrey being really awkward or Will Ferrell being really awkward, and you get that emotional response, that cringe, you're like, I can't believe this is happening. I feel really awkward for those people. That would probably be empathy. That would be
Yeah.
closer to empathy than sympathy. But yes, you are 100% correct.
Yeah, it's something you need to look up and find your own definition.
Yeah.
Because the way you will convey empathy will be different based on who you are and what your life experience is.
Sympathy is removed. It's like, oh, I feel so bad.
Here, have sandwich.
Yeah, and empathy is more like, oh my God, and you may
You
even
feel it.
help or do something about it. So that's to me, put it.
What's this?
Oh, you're trying to read my handwriting.
Hidden.
Hidden or smiling. It
Okay.
was
Oh, it's a book.
yeah,
guess
it's
okay.
a video.
Okay, true or false? A smile is an almost universal way of communicating goodwill and cheerfulness.
we switched up our diet for restraint.
Yes, we did. We'll go back to that one. All right, so that one's true, we'll just go with that. I mean, I heard her say true already, but yeah, I don't really need to elaborate on that one. I don't
It
think.
is universal, but you will
Yeah.
find some cultures, when they're happy, they will cover their mouth. When they're smiling, it's just what they do.
Mhm. And thank you for telling me I skipped that one. So if you meet somebody whose body language is much more restrained than yours, you should. This one would be attempt to match it. Yeah,
Because you don't want to act all crazy when they're being called.
and I think that has to do with empathy and sympathy again. So that's a nice, easy one for you guys.
Mhm.
All right, so when answering a business phone, always answer. Let's get some other people in here. Who hasn't answered? Jasmine.
With your name, department, title.
So that one's kind of confusing. Is
It
that from the
is.
book?
It is.
Is
It's this is basically when somebody says, you get your phone, there's multiple ways to answer it. Generally speaking, if you are in the IT arena, you're gonna say, hello, my name is Dale, how can I help you today? You want to, because the person may be really, really ticked off.
Hmm.
And you have to start by diffusing anything potential. So saying, how are you today? they don't know who you are, and they're just gonna bend. But if you give them a little bit of personal information like your name. That's why Disneyland, everybody wears their name tag. It's a very important thing. This is the most important thing I can remember about you is your name. However, I am terrible at that. I'll remember everything else about you. But I won't remember your name. So something I'm actively working on. But
And
that's,
now,
this is-
I want to add, it also depends on the environment.
Yes.
Some workplaces will 100%, when somebody calls me, I say, if I don't know who it is, Justin, or this is Covenant Living IT, this is Justin, so, and I will, hey, how can I help? But that's why I had to actually ask him. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's-
that
it's-
looks wrong, but it's B, but also knowing your environment.
right.
Yeah.
Big business, like it, you're probably gonna start off in the help desk. And you want people to like you. So you'll get your promotions and playing well with others. Yeah,
B, yeah, from the book, it's B. And I
Yeah.
think it really depends on
Yeah.
the situation.
How many of them gotten a phone, you call somebody and you go. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like. Should I talk to them? Are they mad at me?
There you go. See, exactly. And that's where you want to do it. That's why I was like, okay. And he was saying the book is opinion, and there might be with all of these situations, with a lot of these situations, it really is fluid. But going off the book, it's B. My opinion, it's B or C, depending on the situation. I hope that's okay. that I
Yeah, that's
argued.
fine.
I'm gonna argue. Whatever.
This is fine. There's no absolutes in this.
Yeah. All right. So when others are close by, for example, in an elevator or on the subway, it's okay to use your cell.
Social conversations from long people down.
Exactly. Especially in my business where I work with a lot of residents. You never want to share any information outside because the walls are always listening. And
Yeah.
even if you're vague sometimes, people will pick up, oh, I heard him say this. What does this mean? And we don't want that making changes and people get scared. I mean, I'm going to pick on you, Jasmine. We made changes in the dining and, they had to be very careful on how they worded things because our residents would take things and run with them. And then they'd run to all the other residents. Those residents would go talk to the executive. I heard this. What does this mean? He's like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And the telephone game is
Yeah.
horrible. If you guys, anybody not know what the telephone game is? It's okay to raise your hands. Okay, so the telephone game is I call you and I give you information. You pass that on to somebody else who passes it on to somebody else. And next thing you know, you're talking about, somebody's got an elephant wearing white shoes. And next thing you know, you have a leopard that has black spots. Well, I mean,
Each time it
obviously
gets
that's they do, but
changes
it-
a little
it could
tiny
change.
bit, little tiny bit until it's- Yep.
it could be a fun party game, especially for kids, that teaching them about gossip. And basically you'll have kids in a circle and then, you'll say something and you'll whisper it into one kid's ear and they have to repeat that. You don't get to repeat it. You say it once and they have to repeat what you said. And then when it gets back around to you, the last person says what they think was said and you'll have to say your original. And then it's usually way off. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it is funny.
All right. When you reach okay, so this is a multiple answer one. When you reach a doorway at the same person as the opposite sex, the following rules apply. Go for it.
Hey, whoever arrives first, should open the door.
All right, and good job on that one. And then somebody else for the second answer. What wouldn't it be? I'm gonna have her. I'll get you. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't remember everybody's names.
Yeah, that-
The only reason I know Jasmine is because I work with her. So.
Yeah.
Good job, both of you guys. And I don't really need to elaborate on that, I know we are, well, I guess I could elaborate a little. I know we're in a culture right now where there's a bit of a shift on, chivalry and some people are get offended. But don't take that to heart if that happens, just to answer, I'm just saying, I'm being nice, whether you're a guy or a girl, I don't care. I just want to be nice to you. So that's a little nuanced
Yeah, and
situation.
some people will say, you don't need to do that for me. Well, then next time.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, some people will say that, but that's fine too.
I'd rather always assume to be nice than otherwise.
Right.
All right, when exiting an elevator and a more senior person is toward the back, always,
A. I wasn't actually sure. I said A, step aside to let that person exit first, but is that more inconvenient than just getting the heck out of the way?
you just answered your own question. Getting out of the way would be, yeah, so it would be more inconvenient if you're trying to step to the side of the elevator.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure on that.
like food, first in, first out.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That was always one that's,
Mhm.
That's what I was thinking of too. So I wasn't
That's
sure.
right.
Yeah, a senior person doesn't necessarily mean an old guy hunched over.
Yeah,
It might mean the boss, you know, so it's,
or,
yeah.
mhm. Or even just you step out and hold the door open, make sure that they have time. That would be, it's a sign of respect at that point, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, and cultural things, like we said, it's fluid sometimes. If it's a cultural thing and the culture of business is a real thing. All right. You have just heard a coworker in the cubicle next to you speak rudely to a client on the telephone. You should. Oh, this is a fun one. Go for it. Okay, anybody have any other ideas on? It's a hard one.
Feel like you could tell your boss, but that depends on how bad it is. If they're just bad mouthing them, just you're angry slightly, or if they're just straight up, disrespecting them completely. I feel like you should tell your boss what they're doing that.
So all three of these answers can be valid at times. It depends. The C is kind of, it's that we do want each other, we're here to help each other out. And if somebody's rude to a client, then it could be a big issue for the organization.
The whole thing.
Exactly.
I guess it depends on the severity of the rudeness.
Mhm.
And yeah.
And if you have a relationship with that person, A could work if you have a relationship. But ultimately, B is a big one because that way you're not breaking down the walls. You're just saying, hey, I just heard this happen. You might want to check on them and see if they're okay. Because we don't know what's going on in their life. We don't, they may be rude to that customer because they had something rough at home happen. Hopefully we can keep that separate, but it doesn't always work out that way. Telling your boss continues to keep that relationship as long as that boss is able to be discreet on how they handle it.
Right, and you want to be judicious with this sort of thing. Because if you're always running the boss about other
Mhm.
people's bad behavior, you're gonna develop a tattletale
Yeah.
reputation. That's not necessarily good. But if you bring up an issue and for example, if this is somebody you're sitting next to and you're both working a phone bank. And you start hearing it, you make notes. Because the CYA game, you've got to be able to document what you're talking about. Because in today's world, with our litigious society and everybody wants to sue everybody else, you have to have your data lined up. So sometimes you need to start making a documentation. And I saw this at Foster's, they would create, basically, if they wanted to fire somebody, they knew what they were going to do. It took them months to fire them. They'd create a case and they'd start documenting things. So they basically would give them no choice. You either leave now with no severance, or you can leave them, or we terminate you and you won't get any, no benefits or anything. So they rarely got lawsuits saying, you fired me illegally. That rarely happened. And remember, HR is to protect the company,
Unless you got a good HR person.
unless you got a good HR person. In
Yeah.
the big scheme of things.
Yeah, that's a big thing I've been seeing online a lot on Reddit, especially is HR is there to protect the company, but it doesn't mean that HR can't be trusted with information from you, because while they're there to protect the company, a good HR person will build relationships with you, and they'll do the hard job. And that's the hard part about being HR. I would hate to be HR. I'm too outgoing and happy, and I'm like, I gotta fire you, dude. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be horrible. But I mean, think about it. Think about getting that stigma. It's prejudice and racism almost, well, racist as an example.
Yeah.
But it's prejudice because everybody thinks you're evil. So everybody treats you like crap. So of course they're going to have to harden their hearts towards what's going on. And question on, does anybody not know what he meant when he said CYA? So CYA stands for, and I'm going to curse here, stands for cover your ass. And
Documented.
yeah, basically, if you've got everything in writing, that's covering your own butt. If you need approval for a project or you need to spend money, the company money, you get that in writing, not just a verbal call with your boss. You say, I need this in writing. And even if they did verbalize it, you can email them nicely and just say, hey, I know we talked about this. I just need to have written approval. So that way, if anything happens, there's no issue. Most bosses will completely understand that.
Yeah.
And then I do want to elaborate a little bit more on that last, the wait until the call is finished one. Going back to, if you have that relationship with that, I'd lean over and be like, hey, are you okay? I just heard you had a rough, was the client rude? Are you having a rough day? Do you need me to watch the phone banks for you for a minute or help out in any way so you can go take a breather or whatever you got to do to relax? But that's after you've built a relationship and, you got to know that person.
You're friendly, you've gone out to
And-
lunch a few times.
Yeah.
This goes along with what we were talking about right before class, is that sometimes you'll be working with people that are truly toxic.
Mhm.
Now, what that means is somebody with a toxic behavior is they're miserable no matter where they are, and they make everybody around them miserable. Those are the type of people you want to avoid. Yeah, because you'll end up being like them. So I always chose to hang around people smarter than me because then I get free education.
There's also toxic positivity. That's a term I've been hearing a lot lately too. I'm a positive guy, but I'm also a bit of a, I would have to say I'm realist to positive, and meaning I understand that people are going to have a rough day. I'm not going to make excuses for it, but I'm going to sometimes just listen and let them vent. And but sometimes I will try to give perspective on, hey, I know that sucks that it had happened, but have you seen it from that other person's perspective?
Mhm.
And but it's knowing your audience too. That's a hard
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I've got a couple friends like that. So
It's toxic positivity.
it's when all you do is try to make people see only the positive, even when they're complaining. Like husband and a wife, right? They always joke about guys are fixers and girls are talkers. My wife, sometimes she just wants to vent, not have me come up with solutions.
That's
And the
almost always-
the toxic positivity would be me not taking that in consideration, trying to give her too much perspective on other people and always trying to focus on only the positive and not realizing that, hey, we have down moments in our lives.
Yeah,
I've
it's,
met people like that,
yeah.
and they're so annoying. Okay,
Yep,
now-
exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
it's the rose-colored glasses. idea. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a new term that I've been seeing a lot, and it's hard because I'm a very positive person. I'm like, I don't want to be labeled as toxic. Shut up, you jerk.
Yeah.
All right, that was horrible. Okay,
Good buzzword.
when having a business lunch, who pays?
I didn't know what Dutch Street meant.
Dutch treat is when each person pays for themselves. So,
Whoever invited the other person.
generally speaking, unless it's agreed upon.
I think you should always pay for the client's lunch, but I'm old school.
Well,
Well,
this is saying business lunch, not client lunch. So in a
Between
client,
your peers.
yeah, like if I were to say, hey, you want to go out to lunch today, that's me inviting you and you're my peer,
Okay. I
like
got
I'm
you.
going out to lunch with my
It
boss.
says you always pay for client's lunch, not, you know what I mean?
Right.
Picking client, you need to move them and you buy them.
Yeah.
a couple martinis.
For a client.
I got a good
always.
Texas Roadhouse, got a
Yeah.
deal off of that.
Yeah,
But yeah, generally speaking, and sometimes, it's hard because we want to accept somebody else wanting to pay for us. You
Yeah.
just call me, just say, I invited you, I'll take care of it.
So
yeah,
it's
you just say.
invited.
Generally
my-
speaking.
My buy, then, and that also sets the expectation.
Yes, yeah.
And I worked with a guy and he said, yeah, let's go out to lunch. He would never bring his wallet. So it's like every time I went to lunch with him, I said, no, you're not gonna pay because you're gonna leave your wallet at your desk.
Sorry.
Yeah, I went up to Washington a couple of weeks ago. Jasmine's like, yeah, you're gone for 3 weeks for work. And I took out one of my staff members. And in my case, I have a company card. So I can pay for their food, but that would be, even if it was just him and I going and hanging out outside of work, because I invited him out. We actually went to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It is expensive, guys.
Yes.
If you're not planning on spending two, I know I couldn't do the whole thing. Yeah, that's the hard part about, it's
You
not a
get
cart.
per diem.
Well, yes and no. There's some balance there in my case, but like carte blanche, you also want to take into consideration that the company needs to make money to pay you. So if you're just, swiping your card on every little thing, but that's a little bit nuanced outside of the conversation right now. All right, so multiple choice, and this one's going to be a little bit hard because some business environments are shifting. So let's just consider me at work in my job where I've got to usually wear slacks and a polo or a button-up shirt. So on a dress down day, which of these items of clothing are generally considered inappropriate? So inappropriate ones.
So obviously sweatpants.
Okay, good.
Thong sandals, well,
Okay.
loafers without socks. And I'm not too sure, still kind of feeling it is appropriate as baseball caps.
Okay, good job. And then jeans, that's the hard part, is like for us, Friday, I'm wearing my Friday outfit. I'm wearing jeans,
But a nice shirt.
sneakers, and a
Yeah.
nice shirt.
Yeah.
That hurt. Don't ask me to do it again.
More yoga.
Yeah. But like if in my environment, if I were to wear a Covenant Living branded baseball cap, which they sell, that would be acceptable as my Friday attire. Loafers are the nice shoes though, right?
Yeah, the loafers are basically shoes that you don't lace, they're slip-on,
Okay.
Those
Those are generally speaking okay in a business environment.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah. Yeah, without socks. It's really uncomfortable to look at.
Yeah.
Shoes without socks.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Work environment.
Well, hopefully your pant legs are long enough to not be able to see
Yeah.
them. But yes, good job. And so once again, it's fluid based on the environment that you're in. You guys, if you end up working at a help desk, sometimes if you are out of the sight of the customer, they may say, wear a sweater. We did have an issue recently where one of our staff members, it was a temp at another location. And sometimes organizations will do temp to hire. So it's basically contracted. Hey, you're
Try
here for,
before you buy.
yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
nice. It worked out for us. But, they would come to work in t-shirts or outfits that just, weren't work appropriate. And, there was a couple of times where that person had to get sent home. And it's hard because like one time is a mistake and you're accepting the, hey, this person tells you, hey, this isn't work appropriate. We want you to be here, but we need you to come back with actual, if you don't learn from it, then that's all on you. So it's all about knowing the environment.
Yeah, in Foster's, there's an official dress code. But for many years, there was no official dress code. It just assumed you knew what this dress was. Well, one of the Foster's family was giving a big tour of presidents of things like Safeway and Rayleigh's, so they wanted to kind of show off the company. Well, it was in the summertime, and the customer service reps, which were on the phone all day, helping people fix things, were dressed in halter tops, tank tops, flip flops, cut off jeans. They looked like they just roll out off the beach. And that very next day, we got this massive email saying, there will be a dress code and this is why. And it embarrassed the owners of the company because they were dressed down too far.
Mhm.
So
this next question actually made me check my pants. You were in a meeting with a client and several of your colleagues, and you realized your boss's fly is unzipped. You should go for it.
So you ask someone who knows him better to mention it.
Oh, I was gonna make a joke. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. You are 100% correct. So, and sometimes you might be that person. You know, I've got a great relationship with my boss, and
Yeah,
I
you're the one that knows him better.
Yeah.
we-
yes, exactly. But generally speaking, you want to ask us because while it's respectful and like me, if I'm somebody's boss, I would want somebody to let me know. But it's also embarrassing. You know, if I've got a big old booger hanging out of my mouth, yes, I want somebody to know. I'm not as easily embarrassed though. Like if Jasmine walked up to me, or heck, if even one of you walked up to me and said, hey, you know, I know we've been talking, but you got that's a huge zit. I'm like, thanks, dude. You know, okay, maybe not zits, but
Yeah. well, whatever.
but
We get it.
if
Yeah.
it's something that would make you
Chives
embarrassed.
on your teeth.
I'm one of those,
Stuck in
yeah,
your teeth.
child, there you go. Child in your
Yeah.
teeth. You know, there's nothing wrong with letting somebody know because then it's one person letting them know instead of getting through a whole meeting and realizing, holy crud, this whole time I've got a huge chunk of earwax hanging out or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, all right. Use social media too. Oh, this is a fun one. Let's get somebody from the back 2 rows. You haven't answered yet. Go ahead. That's okay. You're back 3 rows though. You're good. I'm just giving you a hard time. Good job. That's perfect. So I do know that some of you added me on LinkedIn afterwards. And of course, once again, all you guys are welcome to if you have any questions. But you know, I don't post a lot on whether it's on my Facebook or on I definitely don't post on TikTok, but Twitter, which you know, that's a whole different story right now. But I'm very cautious about how I present myself because we want to make sure that nothing can be found about us that is, you know, is going to be detrimental to our career. And
People are going to Google you
Mhm.
and do a deep dive on your character as well.
yeah, we do.
Plan on it.
We're hiring somebody for our Washington site right now for an FSC position. My which is FSC is a field sport engineer. But he just got promoted to, I have to brag about him because he's mine. He got promoted to the maintenance director. So he actually came from maintenance and was doing maintenance and IT at his previous job. And he wanted to try and retire into director position. So I'm so proud of him. Great reason to be hiring somebody as opposed to losing somebody because they hate the job. But with all the applicants that we're doing, first thing we do is look on their LinkedIn. We look on their Facebook to see if they're it's, you know, public. And there's nothing wrong with that because I mean, essentially our lives are there and we need to be cautious about who we bring into the fold into our organization. And I know there's that balance of, well, this is my personal life and this is my work life. But if your personal life is going to affect your work life, if we go and see that you've got all these posts that are really negative, just complaining about everything, being a choosing beggar or whatever, you know, like that, those are signs, those are flags. It doesn't mean that you're horrible. It just means that, you know, we may not want you for our environment. And that's a big thing that's really hard to balance.
Yeah, this goes right with what you're reading about in Reddit. Should you offer a potential employer your passwords to your private site of Facebook?
Well, why would you offer anyone your passwords?
I'm just saying,
I'm sure there's employees out there that ask though.
there are employers that ask that.
Yeah.
There are things that cannot be asked of you in an interview.
What about a government job, like high-end top
Well,
secret?
the thing is, if you're gonna work for the CIA.
They already know.
They already, yeah, they've got it already. But, you know, but as far as, there are certain things that they can't ask
Mhm.
in an interview, and if they do, they're trying to get more information out of you. Like, you know, I'm gonna beat on HR a little bit,
Go ahead.
because these are true stories, is that this lady, she was in charge of HR and she had no kids. But she had this beautiful picture of kids on her desk to get potential employees to talk about their family
That's
life.
smart.
Because in those days, we'll say the mid-90s, Microsoft would consider having a family as drag. You can't work 80-hour weeks if you have a family.
Mhm.
So,
And be cautious about your username, because if you're using the same username everywhere, you'll be found. Once they go to Facebook and see the custom URL or something like that,
Yeah.
they're gonna find out your other Reddit accounts, and be careful on Reddit. Oh. Poor
Fun
boys.
stuff.
Fun stuff, but if you use it correctly.
Yeah.
All right, number 20. If you are managing a meeting and there is an adversarial relationship among the parties, try to make sure, an adversarial meaning like two people who really butt heads. So I'm sure you guys already knew that. I just wanted to be a little bit more using simpler words.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got it from the book. All right, who's gonna answer? Go ahead. So we're gonna go with a disagreement on that. So the seating is mixed to encourage open dialogue and discourage and that's kind of a,
Adversarial
Yeah.
environment. That really depends on if you have control of the meeting and you can assign seating, because if you know two people are just gonna butt heads and they're gonna argue about something off topic, like politics, in the meeting, before the meeting, and it sets the tone as everybody comes into the meeting, and that just doesn't help, you know.
and
Yeah,
people do
comment.
tend to sit, go ahead, who had a comment?
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say that like. If they're going to butt heads and like cause problems in the meeting, then obviously you would want to put them together. And then. If they were just going to like, not butt heads, but kind of like bounce off each other, and, like, you know, get to like more important, maybe think out of the box. Type way, then yeah, you would want to mix them together.
That is exactly what I was gonna add. Good job. Very, very well worded. Yeah, and that's the hard part is knowing the people you work with. You know, if you've got people that like to argue for the sake of arguing, called a devil's advocate, somebody who just wants to be a naysayer to everything, then it really doesn't encourage that open dialogue and building what's, like you said, thinking out of the box. Yes, you can ask somebody to leave.
Yeah.
Usually in our positions, it's not gonna happen, or you can, it's great in Zoom, you just mute them.
Yeah,
Or Teams or whatever you're
yeah,
using.
that happened several times during the big meetings during COVID. There were people that would just go off, and this is faculty, mind you. So
Oh, man.
faculty, the moderator in the meeting would just mute that person and let them rant all they wanted.
Now Teams tells you you have been muted, which
Yeah.
happens to me a lot. Oh, in a good way. They do it as a
Yeah.
joke because I'll make jokes and they'll be like, okay, he's getting muted now.
Now, there is something to be said for a calculated explosion of anger in the right arena with the right boss. I had a boss at one time that was really difficult person to deal with. He was always screaming, yelling, hollering, didn't matter what it was. The only way to get the guy's attention was to yell back.
Mhm.
So you had, even though you're cool as a cucumber on the inside, you had to fake it that you're really pissed off. It got his attention. It got him to listen to you. So sometimes you kind of have to play that game, personality game, but sometimes you don't. And it also depends on, because that was the same boss that fired me when I put in my 2 weeks notice. And I found out that was illegal after the fact. You can't do that. You put in your 2 weeks notice, they can't fire you. You know, or they're supposed to pay you that 2
Yeah.
weeks. But that was many years ago, and I already had a job lined up, so I just started early. But be aware that sometimes, you know, you can get through a little better with an emotional appeal. That being said, it goes more to the females in the room. Try not to cry in the workplace. And if you're a guy, it can doom you if you cry in the workplace. There are times you get so frustrated that you are either going to be super angry and blow up, or you're gonna cry. Okay, and it's just, it happens. You get really upset at work because you put your heart and soul into your
It's
job.
like a family at times.
And then when something steers the wrong way and you've just wasted 6 months of your time and you're devalued, that's tough. You come home and kiss the dog, pick the wife type thing. there is another crappy job waiting for you. So don't be afraid to change job.
I think you
On
know you did it on
those
purpose.
bad days, update your resume. I used to keep 2 resumes, one that had all the gory detail of all the technical nuanced weirdness that I'd work on. And then I had one ready to go for the next job, either in company or somewhere else. I always had it ready to go. And so I could go, because that's how I got my job at Foster's. I was having a very, very bad day at my previous employ. And I said, do you guys need somebody with the following experience? I said, yeah, come on in for an interview. I got my job.
So I'm gonna be a little adversarial right here to his statement and create open dialogue.
You bet. What this is about.
So I think there are cases where it is okay to break down. Because we need to vent. But to give the nuance to what he was saying, you got to find the right people in the right place to do it. If you're doing it in a big meeting, and the reason he's saying it's not that it can really shift the environment if somebody,
It
you know,
changes
just
the
breaks
tone.
down enough to cry or scream out or anything like that in a meeting. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't ever show our emotions. It means know when it's okay and when it's not okay.
Right.
If I were to go to my current boss, Ryan, you know, and I'm having personal problems and I'm really open with him. I could go and cry on his shoulder if I found out some really bad news, you know, family member died or anything like that, because I'm comfortable with him. Not all work environments are like that though. You know, my other boss, who's IT national director for IT, he creates a really open environment where we can complain about it. We can challenge any decision. We still have to support it if it's challenged and he says no, because ultimately we trust him to make that final decision.
Mhm.
But yeah, absolutely challenge anything. And, you know, if it gets to the point where we're super frustrated with him, make a personal
This-
call.
Leads right into what I wanted to get to, because it's not in the book per se, but it's something that's happening. I've been watching this happen in places like Google and Facebook. Could you open another thing?
You got a left mouse over here. What?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. I did a lot of 10 key in my day, so I learned how to use the mouse on my left
Oh.
hand, even though I'm right-handed. So my kids would use the computer like this, and that's, you know, for years they would just, but anyway, go to the Atlas of Emotions.
Is it a .com or just Google it?
It's a .org, I believe, just Atlas of Emotions. Now, I want to mention this website because what's happening in places like Google, business for a long time would say emotions have no place in the workplace. So emotions get pushed down. We're human. We are emotional critters. That's how we survive. And this particular website is put together by Paul Ekman. Remember, there was a series on Fox many years ago called Lie to Me.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and it's about facial features. And how you can watch people's faces, micro expressions, and how emotions get presented in the face. And the Dalai Lama is that we don't have a roadmap for our own emotions for the most part. And that's why they call it the Atlas of Emotions. And what this does is it can set the playing field to where people understand where you're coming from, because emotions are different across cultures and amongst us individually. Okay? Now, why is this making a difference in business? What if you work with somebody who flies off the handle all the time? How are you going to deal with this without internalizing, this is making me feel bad? How do I navigate this? These are difficult things to navigate. If you go to open one more browser and type in Wisdom 2.0, this is something that Microsoft and Google and Facebook all jumped into. I mean, big money in this, and they actually have a measurement for it at Google. It's called BOC. butts on cushion. They're teaching people mindfulness meditation. What is mindfulness meditation? Anybody know? Anybody know what meditation is? Kind of get the idea of meditation, you know, there's as many ways to meditate as there are people on the planet. But in essence, is you are basically quieting down the mind chatter. Everybody has this little voice inside that never shuts up. Imagine that voice being a roommate. I think
It
we
is
all
a-
be
it is a-
accused of murder, right? And how often is it positive?
Well, we were talking earlier about there's something called the 5-to-1 rule, where in order for us to try to stay positive, we need to have 5 positives to 1 negative. Because you know how it is. You can have a great day. At the end of the day, you get that 1 email, or you get that 1 phone call, you know, and even if you did have 20 positives through that day, that 1 thing could knock you all the way down.
Yeah.
And, you know, the hard part is focusing on those 5 and not worrying too much about the 1.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's got to take some time up, because like for me, if I've got to solve a problem, that's going to be the need. So be it. But I'll never, you know, like I'll never email one of my staff and say, we need to talk tomorrow morning. I'll wait until the next morning and say, hey, you got a minute? You know,
Yeah.
that way you never want to make somebody,
Yeah,
in any relationships, never say we need to talk, just talk.
yeah. And the reason that companies are doing this is that as people learn how to regulate their emotions through mindfulness meditation, you have far less HR issues and you're more productive.
Hmm.
Follow the money. And this Wisdom 2.0 started maybe 10, 15, man, maybe not that many, maybe 10 years or so ago. And companies jumped into it. Eve Ekman, Paul Ekman's daughter, is now working with companies to teach people how to work through emotions the right way. And the way she describes it is emotions should not be put under the carpet and ignored, because eventually it's going to come out in health issues. Nor should you fully embrace your emotions and, you know, let them, you know, you ooze out all over you or on others. She mentions this in her business presentations, is that emotions should have a handshake type of relationship. You want to acknowledge them, but you don't want them to control you. Because you've met people who are controlled by their emotions. Good thing, bad thing. Inside business, it's not necessarily good. Okay. But emotions are factor into every decision you make.
So they're trying like a yin yang approach, balance.
So in this context, it's more about acknowledging that people have emotions. After so many years of the workforce, you can't cry, you can't, you know, you can't be mad, you can't express any emotion at all. That's the way it was at Foster. You could never express any kind of overt emotion. If you are frustrated, you were not allowed, or, you know, your days were numbered if you had that explosion of anger.
Any of you guys ever have that? It goes back to the toxic positivity with like bosses, even. And that one boss that you go to, I just want to vent to you for a moment. You know, I'm not going to take it personal. You know, I had that one client, that one resident or staff member that once again did not turn off their computer and turn it back on to try it as the first solution. And I just want to vent to somebody. And then they say, well, this is part of your job. Just handle it. It's like, well, no, I understand that's part of my job. I just need a moment to say, I'm so annoyed right now.
There's that sympathy versus empathy, or.
Yeah. Well, it's even beyond that, because there's not even any sympathy in those situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, apathy, good, yeah. Sympathy, apathy,
Yeah.
empathy, yeah. And I've been blessed with some amazing bosses that, you know, that I can literally just say, this is what's going on. I know it's fine. I'm good.
Yeah.
I just needed to vent to you about one more person not
Right.
not
Now, when you
following
get
proper
your
procedure.
first job, I had a chance to talk to a lot of different people in industry. And one of the things that came out of talking to professional software people is look for a company that has the same value system you do. The culture. Because if you work for a company that is make money under any guise versus not, well, you will be affected by the company you work for. So just be aware of that.
Thank you again for listening to me rant and ramble, and this is fun.
Yeah, so this is all very real stuff. So thank you, Justin.
Of course. I'm gonna stop your recording. Yeah. I just hit end and it'll be good.
Just
I should know that.
Yeah.